Hi, it's Sylvester, and I wanted to talk about something that Justin Bieber recently posted on his Instagram. If you are unaware, he posted a series of screenshots wherein it's a text conversation between him and, as far as I'm aware, some unnamed person, where he cuts that person out of his life. He ends the friendship. And, this does feel like something that probably should have been dealt with in private. Not everything needs to be seen by the whole world. But as far as I'm aware, at least, he hasn't said who this person is. So at least he didn't, send his audience after this person or anything like that. As far as I'm aware. But, again, this does feel like something that could have been dealt with in private. But since he decided to make it public, I figure I might as well comment on it, because I am somebody who deals with anger issues, and seeing what Justin had to say here, it really reminds me of my former self. It really, really reminds me of me. And I just, I'm not the first person to talk about this, and I won't be the last. But I do feel like I offer a somewhat unique perspective as somebody who actively deals with anger issues, because I don't know Justin Bieber, so I can't sit here and say that I know that he has anger issues, because I don't. I'm just going off of a few text messages. But to me, it really seems like he has some anger issues, and it really seems to me like this is something that he needs to get help for and something he needs to work on. Now, a little background information about me. I have had anger issues basically my entire life, but in 2013 I experienced an extremely traumatic event. And after that, I became extraordinarily angry, and it very much so negatively affected my work life. It negatively affected my relationships. In fact, I ended basically every relationship I had with, everyone because of my anger issues. My anger has definitely done a lot of harm in my life. And it's only recently that I've really seriously started working on my anger issues. Now, I have seen a lot of improvement. I am a lot less angry than I was a couple years ago. I'm a lot less angry than I used to be. And I handle my anger a lot better than I used to, but I still have a long way to go. I'm still actively finding coping strategies and ways to deal with my anger, and I'm still learning. Basically, I'm not an expert. I'm not a therapist. I'm not, I'm just somebody who experiences anger issues. And again, even though I've gotten a lot better, I still have a long way to go. And so these texts from Justin really, really remind me of who I used to be not so long ago. And it's a little, honestly, it's a little triggering, because it hits too close to home. It really, Justin is really reminding me of who I used to be not too long ago. And so, anyways, let's break this down. So in the first screenshot, the first message that he sent to this person that he shared is, I will never suppress my emotions for someone. Conflict is a part of relationship. If you don't like my anger, you don't like me. My anger is a response to pain I have been through. Asking a traumatized person not to be traumatized is simply mean. And we'll stop there. There's more, but we'll stop there for now, because I already have a lot to say. First of all, I will never suppress my emotions for someone. The thing is, sometimes in life, you have to suppress your emotions. Sometimes when your emotions are really strong, they can be very scary and overwhelming for other people to have to deal with and to have to see. And as somebody, again, who experiences anger issues, I know this firsthand. And this sounds so much like something I would have said even a year ago. I will never suppress my anger, just to make somebody comfortable. You want me to suppress my emotions because they make you uncomfortable? It's well, yes, because that's kind of how the world works, is that we strive to not make other people uncomfortable. We strive to behave appropriately in our relationships with other people. And it is simply not appropriate to just throw your anger onto somebody most of the time. I mean, we are missing context here. So I don't know what this person did to cause Justin to become angry. And perhaps this person did something truly awful and disgusting, and maybe Justin was completely justified in his anger. Maybe his response was perfectly exactly what it should have been. Like maybe this person did something really, really terrible. But from what it seems to me, and again, I don't have the context here, and I don't know Justin Bieber personally, but just the vibes I'm getting here is that this was a disproportionate this was a disproportionate amount of anger as a response to whatever it is the person said or did to upset him. Like if somebody upsets you, screaming at them or lashing out at them or just getting really, really angry with them is usually not productive. What you should do, and then the next thing he says is conflict is a part of relationship, and this is true, but there's productive ways to have conflict, and then there's unproductive ways to have conflict, and simply just throwing your anger at somebody is not productive. It just escalates things. It makes things worse. Good conflict resolution requires a certain amount of level-headedness, and anger does not lend itself to level-headedness. Like the best thing to do when you are really, really angry is to take a step back and think about it and allow yourself to cool down and allow some of the anger to go away a little bit and then respond. It's not appropriate in a lot of situations to just respond in anger. And when you do, you should never make decisions when you are angry, is something that I've learned in my life. Because when you're angry, you tend to be impulsive and you tend to say and do things that you don't really mean. And then when you're no longer angry, you'll look back on how you responded to something while angry and think like, I regret that because I should have waited until I calmed down a little bit before I responded. And so, yes, conflict is a part of a relationship, but that doesn't mean that conflict needs to be explosive and angry. Conflict can be productive. And then this line hits so close to home because this sounds exactly like something I would have said a couple years ago. If you don't like my anger, you don't like me. It just... Like, I probably have said that at some point in my life. If you don't, it's similar to the vibe of, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best kind of thing. Where it's like, sometimes you, like, I don't even, I don't even know how to respond to that. It's like, it's sort of like if somebody is reluctant to receive treatment for their depression and they say, if you don't like my depression, you don't like me. Yes, your depression is part of your story. Having depression is part of what makes you you. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't treat it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try to do something to make your life better. That doesn't mean that it's not harming you and the people around you. You know what I mean? Like, your anger might be valid, and being angry might be a part of what you consider yourself to be, like a part of what you consider your identity to be. But if it's hurting your relationships, if it's causing other people distress, and if it's causing you distress, like if it is hurting people, then simply saying, like, if you don't accept my anger, you don't accept me, is kind of like saying, if you don't accept that I treat people like crap, then you don't like me. It's like, no, we can dislike somebody's behavior and still like them. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, I can dislike the way you handle your anger, and I can dislike what you do with your anger and still like you as a person, even if you are an angry person. You can be an angry person and still use that anger productively and not use you and be God, I'm getting so worked up. I'm sorry, I'm getting so worked up. But you can be an angry person and not have that anger be a negative force in your life, right? Like, you can have depression and treat it and learn to handle it and to deal with it, and have your depression not cause you or the people around you as much distress. Like, there's ways to deal with your anger that don't involve just throwing it around and just, like, it's all about self-control. And saying that if you don't like my anger, you don't like me, is saying I'm not going to get help for my anger because the problem isn't me. And part of conflict resolution is realizing that it goes both ways. The problem is not usually just like one person is wrong in an argument between two people, just like one person's wrong, the other person's right. That's rarely the case. Usually both people are kind of right. Both people are kind of wrong. And so if this person is saying to you, Justin, I don't like the way you expressed yourself, it made me uncomfortable, your anger upset me, then Justin should say, like, okay, my anger was valid. I had every reason to be angry with you, but I shouldn't have expressed my anger in such a way. I should not have, he should accept that he is part of the problem, and that he should get help for his anger. And again, I don't know the context. I don't know Justin Bieber personally, but just like reading this, it feels so much like something I would have said back in the day, not that long ago. And so it's just, I'm sorry, I'm getting like a little bit #triggered. Then he says, my anger is a response to pain I have been through. Now, this is true. Anger is often an expression of pain. People who are angry are oftentimes just in pain. But that doesn't mean that you just because you have pain and you have trauma doesn't mean you need to cause other people harm as a response to that trauma and that pain, and then he says, asking a traumatized person not to be traumatized is simply mean. And I think some of these responses in the comments say it better than I could say it. Like, for example, somebody whose username is love.ellex3 says, your friend is allowed to set boundaries. You lashing out at him because of your trauma is not okay. And lashing out at somebody because you're traumatized, because you're in pain, is still not fair to the other person. Or somebody named Rad Wild Sarah said, being traumatized isn't an excuse to treat people like shit. Again, very valid, and then the next thing that Justin says, the other person says, I'm not used to someone lashing out at me. It's not that I don't see and feel your anger. And then Justin says, ouch, this friendship is officially over. I will never accept a man calling my anger lashing out. I enjoyed our short-lived relationship. I wasn't kidding when I told you I didn't need you as a friend. I have good friends who will respect these boundaries. Which to me sounds like it's the other person who's setting a boundary. The other person is saying, like, I will not allow you to talk to me this way. I will not allow you to lash out at me like this. And Justin's acting like he's the one setting a boundary. Like, his boundary is allow me to treat you however I want to treat you because I'm angry, and my anger is a reflection of my pain and trauma, therefore I'm entitled to it. Or else we can't be friends. Like, allow me to treat you however I want to treat you, or we can't be friends. And like, that's, you don't have to deal with somebody's anger. You don't have to deal with somebody lashing out at you simply because they are traumatized and they are in pain. Like, again, like Justin's acting like he's the one setting a boundary here, when it absolutely sounds like, to me, it's the other person who's setting an appropriate boundary with Justin, and Justin is simply responding very poorly to somebody setting a boundary. You know what I mean? Anyways, then Justin says, I thought you were a pussy, which is why I always kept my distance, but I was willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. This confirms you were the pussy I always thought you were. That's abusive language. You know, calling somebody a pussy to their face is kind of verbally abusive, or at least abusive behavior. So, you know, there's that. And then Justin sends a middle finger emoji, and then says, please leave me alone now. And then the other person says, I'm a pussy, ? And then Justin says, blocking you now. So it sounds to me like maybe Justin needs a little bit of anger management therapy. Sounds to me like Justin might have some anger issues. But again, I don't know Justin personally, and I don't know the context. And, you know, at least Justin didn't drop a name and let people know who this person was, as far as I'm aware. Again, maybe he did and I'm just unaware, because I do kind of live under a rock sometimes. But as far as I'm aware, Justin hasn't told anyone who this person was. So, you know, that's good at least. But this does kind of feel like something that could have been dealt with privately, and to me, it kind of does seem like Justin is making himself look more like the villain here than making the other person look like a villain. And it just, to repeat myself again, it reminds me so much of myself that it is honestly triggering. And so, yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Stay frosty. Bye.